Not all carbs are created equal. Hi there, Coach Sage Candy of VO2 Max Productions here with another training talk. Today we're going to talk about BMI, body weight, body fat, implications in endurance athletics, especially distance running since that's my sport, and also kind of some dietary recommendations, nutrition advice, opinions. And I will start off with a disclaimer: I am not a doctor. I'm not a registered dietitian. Go see your doctor first before trying any exercise or diet program. Yeah, I'm not liable if you die. Obviously with diet you want to be very balanced, and we'll get into that after I talk about the weight issue. And so the question was kind of in terms of racing weight, BMI, what are we looking at for performance? And the first thing I want to say, I'll talk about BMI first, and I've done this in other videos over the years, but BMI, of course, not a super accurate indicator of your health, but also if you're underweight or overweight or ideal for your athletic performance. And I'll get into that because it's basically height and weight. You're just looking at two numbers. And for me, I thought I was under 20 BMI. I put it in a little calculator. I'm 20.2, which is pretty light, but it's not 19. And it's I'm about, just a hair under 5'11", 145 pounds. For my metric friends, I think that's about 1.54 meters, 1.54 meters, and about 65 kilos, maybe 66 kilos, and it fluctuates. So, I'm not super feather lightweight. I'm pretty skinny though. I'm definitely on the lower end of the spectrum, as are most elite endurance athletes in the marathon distance running. But again, BMI doesn't take into account bone density. It doesn't take into account if you're naturally more muscular, you have more muscle mass on you. Because you might, if you lift weights a lot with your upper body and you're jacked, you've got some biceps and shoulder muscles, and that weighs a lot more than fat. You could be really slim but still have a higher BMI because, you could also have higher bone density. You could have tree trunk-like legs and you were born that way. So not a super great indicator. And people say, oh, you need to have a certain BMI of this to be, this. And yeah, for me to be clinically obese, overweight, I'd be over 25, which means for someone my height, if you weigh over 180 pounds, you'd kind of be on the heavier side. And yes, actually Sandy watched a video this morning saying that if you measure your waist circumference, if your waist circumference is more than half your height, it's probably kind of on the overweight side too. But again, it comes down, I think a better indicator of fitness and performance is body fat percentage. Now, I've never had mine measured. I'd guess it's probably in the low single digits, maybe 6%, I don't know, 5%, because I exercise a lot and I eat a low-fat diet. But generally, people aren't going to have access to get a real accurate body fat composition. Now, you get those scales, and you could get the little calipers, the little clip things. Still not super accurate. I think water displacement's the most accurate way to measure body fat percentage, and obviously it's different for men and women. I'm not going to really talk on women's health as much, but body fat, essential body fat for women, you generally need to be at least over, I think it's, 14%. You don't want to get under that really, maybe 15%. Generally for women, you need to kind of stay above that to stay healthy. Whereas for men, you can get down to 5% central body fat. You don't really want to go under 5%, but you could be in the lower single digit range, 5 to 8% for a fairly elite endurance athlete. That's pretty skinny. That's real light. Most people aren't going to be in the single digits there, but I think that's a better indicator of what potential you have to lose if you are trying to lose a couple pounds to improve performance. Now, for performance indicators, you toe the starting line in these big marathons. I've done Boston, New York, Chicago. Towed the line next to the top marathon runners in the world. Many of them are East African. Actually, most of them are East African. And reading the book, the 2 Hours book, it talks about their diet and how they grow up, and genetic variations that might give them an edge, so to speak, in endurance sports. And what we do see is that these guys are pretty skinny. They're pretty light. Their BMI is definitely lighter than me. I kind of look like a bigger guy standing next to these guys. And part of it's genetic, part of it's also through training and diet, which I'll get into in the second half of this training talk. But they looked at their calf muscle, in the book at least, and looked at DNA and why maybe they have these thinner, longer calf muscles and these more toothpick-like legs, so to speak, super strong toothpick legs, I will add, which makes them very light on their feet. They look at, ankle diameter and circumference. And, if you have less weight on the end of your leg or the end of your arms, you don't have to work as hard to swing them, I guess. So it's just a matter of leverage. And yeah, these guys are super light, but it's also what's inside that counts. Because, nature versus nurture debate, you're born with a certain hand that you're dealt with. You could blame your parents, you could blame your grandparents, your ancestral line. If you weren't born with toothpick-like legs, I have pretty skinny legs, but they're not as skinny as a lot of these East African guys. I could try to whittle them down through lots of hard aerobic training to try to get the calf muscle to kind of atrophy and shrink, but I don't necessarily want to do that because muscles also make my legs sturdy. Bone density makes your legs less resistant to break. I mean, I ran with guys in college. There was a guy in college, super talented. He probably weighed like 115 pounds. He was like 5'6", 5'7", super lightweight guy. But he got stress fractures all the time if he ran over 50 miles a week. Another one of my teammates, buddy of mine, ran way faster than I did in 5K, 10K. He was pretty much a 29 flat 10K runner, 2:16 marathoner now. Way heavier than me, big tree trunk-like legs. Didn't get injured very much though. Real solid guy. What's inside that counts is important. So the size of your heart, the size of your lungs, your VO2 max and efficiency. And with VO2 max, of course, weight is related to that. It's like cycling. It's not how many watts you could just generate flat out. A lot of times the bigger guys in cycling could generate more watts. But if you're looking at climbing performance, it's power to weight ratios. So the lighter guys in cycling could usually climb pretty well, even though they can't do quite as many watts. It doesn't matter because they're doing more watts per kilo of their weight. So it's kind of an energy cost type of thing. But again, it's what's inside that counts. Mental strength to your how you train your system, how you improve your blood flow, the size of your heart, the size of your lungs, which we can't see either. But if you have a bigger heart and bigger lungs, you could be a bigger guy or gal and run just as well as a featherweight person that maybe has a small heart and maybe they're more injury prone. Now, generally, if you have weight to lose, you do want to lose it because it will help performance. And that's if you have excess body fat. And my number one thing, and you don't want to, there's eating disorders are rampant in the sport of endurance running, so you don't want to get too skinny. I'm not advocating that. But generally, for the health of, at least of most Americans, as a society as a whole, these aren't even including runners, we could usually afford to lose some weight and to cut out some body fat. Obesity and diabetes is rampant in this country, as a lot of other first world countries, where ironically you go to poorer third world countries and people are actually pretty skinny because they're kind of starving, but also because they're forced to eat beans and rice and ugali and things like that all the time. They're not eating all these sirloin steaks and things like that. So I do believe, but you have to make sure you get essential nutrients and vitamins, which I believe, and this is my opinion, but also backed by a lot of research, is that a whole foods plant-based diet is going to help you get there. It's going to help your performance. It's going to help your overall health. Some people are like, oh, well, Sage sacrifices eating so he could run fast and run well. He's sacrificing his health for performance. No, I don't view it that way. I'm trying to eat as healthy as I can so I could perform as well as I can, so I could recover well, so I get good blood flow, so I decrease my risk of getting heart disease and type 2 diabetes and cancers. And that's what I believe a whole foods plant-based diet, which is gonna, by default, is gonna be high carb, low fat diet, is the number one way to do that. And so with body weight, people are worried, but if you just eat right, if you eat the right kinds of foods, you could eat pretty much till you're full because the fiber's filling you up, and you exercise a moderate amount, that's gonna be your healthiest bet, and that's gonna get you down to your ideal racing weight. And for a lot of people, maybe just starting out and they're targeting trying to lose weight, that's the number one way to do it. And the problem we see, and now this is kind of the part of the talk that gets into diet, is that you don't want to limit your carbohydrate intake too much. I think with the misconception with Atkins diet, paleo diet, the low carb, high fat, high protein types of diet, which are usually very animal based, because it's hard to eat really high fat, really high protein without eating animal sources. So generally that gets lumped together. The problem with the Atkins and the paleo diet and that whole crowd going into ketosis is that you do lose weight. People who go into that diet temporarily, they start losing weight. It's amazing. And you know why they lose weight? It's because they had the standard American diet, which is usually around 30% fat, but a lot of refined carbs. And so, all of a sudden you take this person that eats maybe a standard American diet, which includes soda pop, candy, sugars. They're eating, cake and dessert for breakfast, or not for dinner. They're eating, all these things, all these refined mac and cheese, and they're like, oh, I cut that out. Well, I stopped drinking soda, I stopped eating candy, stopped having all these refined carbs and refined sugars, and I lost weight. But I'm eating more bacon and butter and eggs for breakfast. And so what you do see is they in the short term they're losing weight. Well, what are they doing in the long term? What's the implications with a high protein diet on your kidney function? What about building up plaque in your arteries and risks of coronary heart disease? Now that starts to get, over time, I think we'll see that will be more of a problem. And that's the problem with these diet fads, so to speak. I just read the low carb fad by Colin T. Campbell, and he talks about that and how these people, Atkins himself, Noakes and Banting diets, they've kind of tricked people into thinking this is the way to lose weight. I could burn fat efficiently. Yeah, the body adapts to burn fat very efficiently if that's all it's been given. But is it good in the long term? Is it good? Is it a sustainable practice? Is it good for athletic performance? And I'm going to say it's not. And you can disagree with me in the comments below. Feel free to rant away. But on the other hand, we see these high carb, low fat diets, generally whole foods, plant-based. Now whole foods, meaning not highly processed carbs, not refined sugars as carbs. I'm not advocating you to go eat Wonder Bread, or just, dousing your pancakes with artificial syrup. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't put a bunch of sugar in your coffee because you want to eat more carbs. That's not a good way to do it. But things from, eating more fruits and vegetables generally has been shown to be very good for you. They're chock full of nutrients, antioxidants, cancer-fighting chemicals, and generally pretty high carb, high fiber as well, which is also very good for you. And so on one hand we have this diet, the whole foods plant-based diet, high carb, low fat, that has been shown to not only have all these nutrients and be more sustainable, environmentally more sustainable for the planet in terms of energy costs, saves the lives of animals from being killed in the slaughterhouse, always good, but also reduces the risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and obesity, and forms of cancer. It's been shown to do that. It's the only diet that's been shown to do that. On the other hand, we have everything else basically, but especially the opposite of that, which is the high fat, low carb, generally very animal protein based, animal fat based, maybe some refined oils in there as well. Throw in the coconut oil, butter in your coffee, which at best is very, very, very questionable, as a lot of research has shown to increase your risks of getting cancers, increase the risks of obesity and type 2 diabetes, things like that. And to me, it's a no-brainer choice. Like it's not even really a debate. People say, well, you're debating diet like you're debating religion or your politics. Well, it gets very tied in with that, and people are very passionate about that. But when you compare those two diets like that, it's really, there's a lot of research and scientific evidence that supports one over the other, and a lot of logical sense that supports one over the other. And I'm not saying you have to be a saint. I eat some things that are non-vegan sometimes. I indulge. I have a big sweet tooth. I like cake and cookies too. But in general, if more people just ate more plants and vegetables, I think we'd be healthier overall, and I think you'd optimize your racing weight and your performance, improve your blood flow, improve your recovery, And you know, you don't want to be extreme about it. You want to make sure you get a good balance of nutrients. You want to make sure you get enough things like B12. But you know, B12 deficiency is not just a vegan problem, it's everyone's problem. Just like vitamin D, it's everyone's problem. Just because you have some fortified milk with vitamin D and you have your total cereal in the morning doesn't mean you're getting all the vitamins and nutrients that you need. So you do have to look at things like that, and that we could go way into detail on that. But that's the main misconception that I think people see, is they're like, well, this person started the Banting diet, Atkins, paleo, and they started losing weight. Yeah, well, look what happens in the long term. They usually will gain that weight right back, if not more, and then, you know, their cholesterol goes up. You get kidney stones, things like that. Their performance drops off. You know, it's not a real sustainable types of practice. Whereas, other hand, you see these plant-based, whole foods, plant-based, high carb diets. And when I say high carbs, not all carbs are created equal. Again, the carbohydrates we're talking about are mainly coming from things like beans and rice and vegetables and fruits. Not necessarily a bunch of bread and pasta, although I do eat that too. I don't hold back on that, and beer. That's important as well. But you know, that's kind of my rant on diet, and that's kind of what it comes down to with racing weight. So yeah, in endurance athletics, especially marathon, especially road marathon, I'd say, and 5K, 10K on the track, you usually probably find the lightest types of runners. Ultra running and mountain running, you have more diversity. You have people with thicker quads and calves because they need to sustain the pounding of the vertical displacement of the trails in the mountains, the side-to-side motions going down trails, going around turns, and the overall slower pace. So it's a matter of durability, it's a matter of functional muscle power. And so, you know, you look at, people ask me all the time if I go to the weights or if I go to the gym and lift weights, and I don't anymore. I did in college, and my thing with weight training is usually I'm running so much I'm already pretty tired, but I don't go out of my way to lift a lot because I don't need to build up my arms really that much. Now, I'll give a good example as we close out this training talk, because I know this is super long, but in college I did a lot of bench press. You know, I wanted to get the bench up. We did, you know, we call them curls for the girls, you know, try to just crank, get the biceps jacked, get some good musculature going. Well, the bench press especially, I found the more I did with the bench, and I could put up 175. Not very impressive, I know, but it's way more than I weigh, so I was happy with that. And I was repping at 135. So I'm doing the bench. Pecs got a little bigger. They're not going to get huge. I'm not going to be a big muscular guy ever. The more I benched, the worse my 5K seemed to get. It was not very specific to running a 5K. You know, pectoral muscle, this dead weight in the front of my chest looked great maybe, but not very functional to running a real fast 5K. The curls, maybe you could argue a little bit more because you got your arm swing going and doing some shoulder shrugs, things like that to hold form. But generally, lifting a lot of upper body weights is not going to help you in distance running very much. And I even avoid the squats too. I think squats are a little more functional because it's like a running stride. Now, the important thing with weight training and strength training though is that you do want to build a strong core. So you could do a lot of free weights, you could do sit-ups, you could do planks, you could do pull-ups, but then after that, you're starting to talk about only doing weight training, only doing these exercises to build specific strength to address a muscle imbalance, which could be very genetic and very individual. So you're building strength to address an injury or a potential injury. You're building strength or lifting or doing special exercises to overcome an imbalance that you may have naturally. That's going to hopefully improve your form. Your running form is what wants to get ironed out so that you stay healthy. So it's not a matter of I need to lift to build my muscles, especially my upper body. It's I need to make sure I don't get injured. And I think that is the real value of weight training in a distance runner's program. Now, obviously, if you run shorter distances, milers, you know, half milers, you know, sprinting around the track, you could be definitely, you're pumping your arms more vigorously. You're going to rely more on muscle power, much like you would in other more dynamic sports, soccer, basketball, things like that. But the distance runners, especially the marathoners and the 10K runners on the track, usually are the lightest breed. And then these are generalizations. Now in mountain running, again, you know, you could do single-legged squats. You could do squats to help yourself so you don't bang out your quads on a mountain descent. That's very good. That's good functional muscle. And yeah, it might weigh more. It might make you weigh a little bit more. It might add to your BMI. But if it's functional muscle that's really helping you, if it's helping you not lose form, if it's helping you not get injured, then it's important and it needs to be there. So that's kind of my rant on that. It is kind of a individual thing with racing weight. But again, it comes down to body fat percentage and just eating a healthy diet, not being obsessed. I don't weigh myself every day. I don't count calories. I could estimate pretty well usually what caloric intake I have and what my macronutrient ratios are. I think pretty confident. I mean, I know it's mainly carbs. And then, you know, keeping track of when you run well, what your racing weight is. And that's always a good indicator as well. But you have to make sure you're getting enough of the nutrients and the vitamins and all that good stuff, fiber, protein, fat, whatever. You need to have the good blend. But that's my rant on racing weight and diet. This is very long-winded. It might be my longest training talk to date. Hope you found it useful. You might disagree with me passionately. Feel free to comment below. Thumbs up for if you like it. Share it on social media. Subscribe. Definitely vote for future training talk topics. I love doing these things. I want to do more of them in the future. So really do appreciate all the views and all the support. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Hope your fall training's going well. And stay tuned for more VO2 Max Productions.